Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Megaman ZX Advent. In the last week we took care of Bifrost, our final Pseudoroid, gaining access, more or less, to the penultimate stage of the game. With that said, we're nearing the end of the game, only 2 stages left, so clearly that means time for a massive side quest again. In fact, I think the next 2 parts entirely are just side quests. And we're here in the scrapyard stage for one of my least favorite, if not my least favorite. It's between one of 2 candidates for my least favorite side quest in the game. The one we're here for, or the one that involves getting the Chabanos located throughout the various stages of the game. For the side quest we're here for, we need to get about halfway through the stage to this room. And you might remember when we were here the first time around, I said there was something over here to the right. Now we can do it. The main reason I waited on coming over here is, well, these are more Chabanos. We had to come over here anyway. There are 50 of them located throughout the various stages of the game now. There's not one in every stage, and there's an inconsistent amount in every stage. I think there's like 10 here, but there's not always 10.
My name is James. I'm a recycling hunter. I make my living salvaging junk. Yeah, what do you say you bring me some junk to recycle? And I'll turn it into something useful for you. Of course, it'll cost you, though.
So now, throughout the portions of the scrapyard, starting in Scrapyard 2, there are 4 items we need to collect in order to get the item he's going to make for us. The first one's pretty close by. It's right up here at the top of this very room. We just need to use Model P/Sarnak to get up in here and then dash under these spikes. Just need to make sure you don't accidentally touch the spikes. Okay, there we go. And here we got the ignition. 1 down, 3 to go. With that said, because they're so interspersed throughout the area, we're going to be speeding up a lot of the trek from here on out just so we can get through this in a pretty reasonable time frame. If I'm recalling the split correctly, there's 2 here in, because I think we're still technically in Scrapyard 2. There's 2 in Scrapyard 2 and I think 2 in Scrapyard 3. I think. The next one is pretty... Actually, no, the 3 are in Scrapyard 3. Hell, I forgot about that. The next one is pretty easy to miss as well because you might just find yourself hitting the switch to move the cube out of the way of it. We need to jump up this particular area and come over here to the right to find it. This is the titanium. The worst item to grab out of this set of 4 is without a doubt the final of the items, as it's in this area, but it's in a room we haven't even seen, because accessing that room requires using either head shock or base ash and gray to crawl into a passageway we did not crawl in during our initial venture here in the scrapyard. Now, on its own, this wouldn't be too bad. But ultimately, this entire cutscene, this entire side quest rather, is the one I find the most comparable to the quest for the final sub-tank in the original ZX, where you were just revisiting, I think it was Area P, over and over and over again for those 2 NPCs over in Guardian Base. What we need to do is, once we reach this part of the stage, we need to crawl back over to this section and now climb through the level design, because now the switch is marked as, I think, red? We'll be able to go to the right coming up here rather than the left. Okay, it's marked blue, never mind. So we can now dash up here, come in here, and this brings us to this room. Now, the annoying thing in this room, there's these enemies, of course, who can crush you. There's going to be a bottomless pit, and there's going to be spikes you can hit that can instant kill you. If you grab the item at the end of this room and then die, you have to get the item again, which is technically something I think that's been in the series since 03 at the least. I think even 02, I think, because if you get the sub-tanks in the 2 forest stages in that game and die, and get a game over, rather, I think you have to go get those items again. Which, not a fan of that, but, oh, well, that's an entirely different subject. This is the only one I feel that's a really decent risk, because, as I mentioned earlier on, every rune transition in ZX Advent is a checkpoint. The warp points are just that, only for warping. It's rough. I do not like this side quest. I think they could have done it a lot better. But oh well. The worst part of it is technically yet to come, because here's the thing. Once we get all the items, we need to take them back to... I've already forgotten his name. Is it Jay, I think? because of the way this game's transport system works, where you can't use warp points to transfer within the same level, or use a warp point to transfer over to the trans server and then teleport from there, what we need to do is get all the pieces, go to Scrapyard 4, teleport back to Scrapyard 1 or 2, get the pieces to him and the side quests, and then run all the way back to the end of Scrapyard 4 in order to leave the level properly. This is the most obtuse amount of backtracking this game has. Which is weird, because this game is otherwise very restrained when it comes to the amount you need to backtrack back and forth through the same levels. It just feels wrong.
You know, engine ignitions have titanium alloy in them. I can recycle this into something nice for you. But it'll cost you 100 energy crystals. Want to recycle this?
And there we go. Let me hand over all the junk.
Alrighty, I'll have that for you in a jiffy. There, a booster. How you use it's up to you. If you need something else, just bring me back some more junk to recycle.
So, when I first got this item, I thought it was going to be sort of like the Quick Walk chip from the Zero series, where it would double your walking speed, or at least like increase it by 50%. This is an item you use in a different side quest to make your chances of victory either guaranteed or more likely. You don't need it for the side quest, at least not the first 2/3 of it, but it just feels wrong. It's... and now we need to backtrack all the way to the end of the level again! Fantastic. Ugh. This is the reason I foreshadowed when we were back in the scrapyard, I believe, where I mentioned that the scrapyard is both a level I like, but it's also potentially my least favorite level in the game, just because of how much I'm scarred with this. Even Area P, with how much backtracking you have to do for that area, wasn't as bad as this. With that said, now we're back in the oil field. I think this is oil field 2. Because now it's time for us to go on the hunt for more of those Chabanos. The next sets are all in oil field 2. There's a set we need to get that's underneath the area near where we found the first of the biometal meter ups. And then there's some they start to get a little cute with in this area. Because what they like to do for some of the Chabanos is they like to hide them beneath platforms that you can't get beneath normally. What they want you to do is use items that, or attacks that can pierce the walls to reach them, like Model A's, homing missiles, fetuses, charge shots, because the ice moves can pierce walls. Some saber attacks, like I think maybe Aeolus's Sonic Boom can do that. Or, what I tend to use a lot, Bifrost's Bite Attack can pierce the walls. It doesn't feel good to do, though, because the movement of the Chabanos isn't exactly consistent. It's at times very random until you hit them, in which case they try to jump into you to do an attack right back at you. It doesn't feel good because they won't always get procced by your attack. And, ugh. This is why throughout the game I've also unlocked certain warp points, because I realized I had to come back here later anyway. If you want an exact list of where they are, let me get the list I used up to remember where they were. Here we are. They are located in Waterfall Ruins 3, which is the first set we took out that started this whole thing. There's some in Legion HQ 1. There's the ones we took care of earlier in Scrapyard 2. There's some in Highway 1. There's the set here in Oilfield 2. And then there's some in Floating Ruins 3. The Floating Ruins 3 set is especially on my shit list. Partially of my own fault, though. I will admit that when we get to that. Because I forgot how part of the game's controls worked, because it's the only time they really require you to use a very particular quirk about the Sarnak transformation. At least in the way that they want you to use it there. Because it's a different way you do it than I tend to do it throughout the game. But yeah, right there, that Chabano to my lower left is the first one that I was talking about, where they get kind of cute. Actually, there's like 2 or 3 in there, I think. You need something that can pierce the walls to get to it. I like to use Bifrost's Bite because I don't even need to worry about them jumping. The Bite will just pierce the defenses and take them out in one shot. With that said, prepare for a lot of jump cutting because we are going all over the place for these things. Though I am also going to take this moment to show off something over here in Legion HQ. There's a couple of bits of level design we haven't quite seen here yet that while I'm on the way, I might as well show off. For instance, one of the first sets of the Bifrost blocks we saw throughout the game. Well, the first set was over in Arctic Ice Flow 3, now that I think about it. But we also saw a set here, and this allows us to grab this secret disc, which is an enemy, so that's all it is. I think that might be like I want to say it might be like the ceiling cannons. Although at this point, I should also, on the way, mention the Ash exclusive side quest, because this is the point in the game where that becomes available. Actually, no. No, wait, no, I'm wrong. It becomes available after you've taken care of Chrono Force and Rose Spark. But you can't complete it until you've beaten Bifrost. There's a NPC set that was exclusive to Ash's tutorial mission. And you can talk to one of her friends, I think his name's like Nicole or something, over in Hunter's Camp 2. You need to find a few friends. One of them is in the room I showcased earlier in the LP that you needed to raise with Queen Bee in Oilfield 1. The other is behind a set of Bifrost blocks in Arctic Ice Flow 3. Because behind one of those sets of blocks is another door from those generators you're taking out in that area. You take out that extra generator, a door in the top right of the area becomes accessible, and then you can just rescue your last friend, who I think is like named Lazarus or some shit like that. It's not very remarkable. I think all you get for that side quest is, I think, energy crystals, like, I want to say 300, maybe a little less than that. It doesn't matter because I can't do it as Gray anyway. And I technically had to play the game multiple times for this LP, but I didn't feel like recording any Ash stuff because I was very burnt out of the game by the time I finished the recording for this LP. Either way, here's the Legion 1 set. But we're not quite done in Legion. We're now back past where the Sarnak fight was. And you might remember in this section there were those hoverboards we used to break through some of the windows and all that. And when we were doing, I think, the side quest we needed Queen Bee here for, where we needed to put out the fire, I mentioned that if you look at the map, this section of Legion HQ has one below it on the world map that makes this entire Legion area look like a uppercase letter T with a very short stub on the bottom. Now that we have Bifrost, we can access that area. We can access Legion 4. This isn't worth it in the long run, but I remember as a kid, this area taunting me with how to find it. Because I wasn't very good at looking up guides back when and figuring out how to access certain areas. We just need to be Bifrost, get on this hoverboard, and it just sinks because of our weight, and it opens up this area, allowing us to access this door that you could see very early on. There isn't much in this doorway, except a warp point, an enemy hallway, and a secret disc. Though they are at least a little kind, in that this area also gives you another trans server to work with. Not that it matters because of the weird quirk of the trans servers not being able to transport between each other, but oh well. I'm not even sure what enemy data disk that is. Oh, there's 2 disks here. But hey, I figured I might as well show that off because this taunted me for ages as a kid. With that, now we're going to head over to the Floating Ruins, because we're going after my least favorite set of Chabanos in the game. What's rough about this set is they are split into 2 sections across Floating Ruins 3. The first is near where the end of the level is. It's just high up in the sky, pretty much like that. The other requires going down one of the tornadoes you've seen throughout the game and going onto a platform I didn't show off when we were first doing this level. What we need to do with that platform, though, is a little rough because it involves these very cannons I talked about when we were doing the sub-tank quest here. These guns that shoot out green energy that make you unable to jump. What you need to do is transform into Sarnak on this platform and double tap down to hang on it, and then double tap up to flip back up. This is the only time in the game they require you to really use the double tap up and the double tap down in order to easily get through an area. Any other time in the game, you can just press down the jump button and up on the jump button for it to work, but because they deliberately place those cannons there that make you unable to jump, this can be a very frustrating section to figure out. I died here a lot in practice. I remember dying here a lot as a kid trying to do this side quest. I don't like that. It's the only time they outright require you to use that technique that exact way. With that said, this music still rocks. And something I haven't mentioned about the Chabanos, I'll recommend whenever you're doing this side quest, if you feel you've killed them all, stroll the area they were off screen and then come back, because if a Chabano despawned for any reason, like it got too far off screen or fell into a bottomless pit, it'll then respawn and then you can make sure you cleared out the area for good. Because I've had several times during this side quest where I thought I got them all, but I missed one because it had just despawned because of either enemy limits or just getting too far off screen. It's bad. With that said, the set of Chabanos here in Highway 1 is pretty easy to find as long as you remember that there is an area I foreshadowed earlier on in the LP where there's platforms up here. Because this is where most of the ones in this level are. But this isn't the only reason we're here in Highway 1. There's another side quest that opens up here, I believe, once you access this final set of 3 stages. In that, over in the area where the mini-boss was, I believe that is Highway 3. There's now just a random hunter there who's gonna give us a side quest. With that said, I will warn you, if there's any chain of side quests you should not do in ZX Advent, it is this chain of side quests, because it does nothing except give you energy crystals. Even the early side quest of doing the firing range does more for you in the long run than the one we are about to do. Because at this point in the game, energy crystals don't even really have much of a point anymore outside of filling your sub-tanks. Oh, also, frequent competitor for last Chabano you'll find in the game, because this is the only one I think that's like off on their own in the entire game. Every single other one usually has like 1 or 2 others with it. I have very often missed that because I've just been flying over it. My name's Bert. Do you think you can beat a galleon rider in a race? It's all about speed. Do you have what it takes? The first to cross the finish line's the winner. Jump on one of those rides over there and get ready to race. Race? That's the spirit. Let's get ready to rock. Oh, is that a boost you have? You can use that to tune up your ride. You can take off like a rocket right off the starting line. But it's so powerful that once you use it, it destroys the booster. Use your booster? God, no. All right, let's start the race with no booster. So this is a chain of 3, technically 4 infinite side quests, where we need to race a specific version of the motorcycle galleon. There are enemies placed all over the place that you can blow up, and in the later variants, there starts to be fire that will make the galleon racer get a boost of speed and just slow you down because you slow down slowly whenever you get hit. With that said, the fire you can put out with electric attacks like head shocks, charge shot, which is what I recommend, so that the galleon doesn't get that speed boost. Great, the challenger wins! Congratulations, here's your title and your prize money. And for that, we get the Hayate title, meaning we've cleared the first set, and 100 energy crystals. But now we need to leave this area, and by that I mean leave the highway period to teleport back to the area. I think you just need to go into like Highway 2 though. And now we can come back to him and talk to him now that we have the Hayate title to have a harder version of the course with a faster opponent. This is where they start introducing the fire. But it's also here I recommend using the booster, because the second onwards variants of these races get very, very precise with the timing, because the racers just get higher and higher in speed, and the layouts get so much more intense that you need to take every opportunity you can to have a speed boost in front of it. Head shocks, charge shot, again, very good for putting out the fire, because not only does it outpace you slightly, but it'll also put out the fire, meaning you won't take damage and get slowed down. You can beat that one without the booster, it's just kind of rough to do so. With that said, the third and onwards variants, you don't need to do the fourth one onwards, there's no real point to it from memory, require the booster to win. But like he said, the booster's been destroyed since we used it. So you might wonder, what does that mean? How do we get the booster back? Remember that side quest we did in the first few minutes of this video? We gotta go do that entire thing again. This is what I meant earlier by saying this is the closest analog this game has to the one sub-tank side quest line in the original ZX, where you go back and forth to that one area for the 2 nurses over and over and over again. Only, at least in that, Area P, if I'm recalling the area that was correctly, was a very short stage. The scrapyard's kind of long.
Oh, looks like you took care of all those Chibanos. Excellent work. I want you to take this. And I won't take no for an answer.
Before we go off more on that rant, for doing the Chibano quest, we get the Extender body chip, which in concept could be the most useful one in the game, but you get it so late since it's only in the last set of 3 Pseudoroid levels that it doesn't really get a chance to be used. What it does is that it extends your invincibility frames after you get hit. If you're playing on expert mode, this would be key to survival if you could get it earlier. But because you get it this late, it's borderline worthless. Like, why would they put this late? I don't understand. With that said, time for me to go to this side quest again.
By the way, what'd you do with that booster I made for you? So you found a good use for it, huh? Good for you. Now if you ever need something else, just like I said before, bring me some good junk. And I'll turn it into something useful for you.
I don't like it. Why do they make you do this? Thankfully, if you play your cards right, you'd only have to do this side quest twice. If you're someone who accidentally pressed the A button on using the booster on the first round, you'll have to do it 3 times, and that I think totals out to at least 6 treks through the scrapyard within maybe the same hour? Ugh. Not a fan. Not a fan at all. The third one isn't even a guarantee with the booster. The third race isn't even a guarantee with the booster because you still need to place your charge shots right with head shock and avoid enemy fire right. Because look how close this thing's getting to me. But it's the only way you can win. Like, you need it to win. If you don't need it to win, it's probably like frame perfect or some shit like that. But with that, we're now the Speed King. There are future variants of this, but like the future variants of the firing range side quest we did at the very beginning of the game, it is just for bragging rights and extra energy crystals. And here's what the collection room's looking like at this point. Like I mentioned earlier, the 2 empty shelves on the shelf are for the other 2 variants of comic books because they all have different sprites. You can never fill the shelf completely on a single playthrough, and it just feels really weird for that. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 18, more side quests, including us finally talking about those medals we've collected some of thus far. See you guys then.